No, yesterday I shared the video. Okay, so here today we'll discuss about
Can we review VNet like very fast before you start the main topic?
actually first we need to design the VNet, then we need to create the VMs, even in the network also. But what is happening is if we don't have a network in the resource group, automatically we are going to get one VNet we are getting by default. So that VNet itself we are using.
Okay, it means that it's like generated by
Yeah,
Azure.
Azure itself is going to provide.
Okay.
So that VNet we are using, but instead of using that, we are going to create our own like a VNet. Okay, so what is the meaning of VNet is an isolated network we can create in Azure. Okay, so we are going to create an isolated network and that network we are going to use for our resources. Okay, so then that is we are going to create a VNet. Okay, so while creating the VNet, we need to choose the resource group name and region. Okay, so mostly the VNet or virtual network is the scope is within the region itself. Then we need to give the say here if we want to create the VNet, what are the details we need to choose is like which subscription we want, then resource group, region. Then we need to give the address space we need to provide. What is the meaning of address space is like we need to give the CIDR block. Okay, so what is the CIDR range of IPs we want? So that CIDR range we need to specify. Mostly by default we are getting is a 10.0.0/16. Okay, so what is this meaning of 10.0.0.0/16 is that is going to give this range of IPs are going to be given 65,536 IPs we are getting. Okay, so this is the CIDR representation, like the new way of representing the IPs. So here are we getting IPv4 or IPv6? Are you getting IPv4 address or IPv6 address?
Four.
IPv4.
As of now, we are getting IPv4. If we want, optionally, we can add IPv6 also. After this VNet, we are dividing this into subnets also. Okay, so we are dividing those into the subnets. Say that logically, we are dividing those into subdivisions. Okay, so those are called as subnet. Okay, so why mostly we are going for the subnets is, so we will have two types of subnets, public and private subnets. What is the difference between public and private subnets? So what is the difference between public and private subnets?
So public, you can access from internet, and
Yeah,
private is
public
within your
resources are accessible
organization.
over the internet, and by default, if you don't specify anything in the Azure, it is going to become a public subnet itself. Optionally, we can make it as a private subnets. And all these days, when we create the subnets, we got the VMs. Okay, at the VM level, we have the firewall rules. At the NSG level, we have, but we can attach for the subnet level also. We can attach. So we have network security group. One NSG is at subnet level, one NSG at the VM level or inside the resources we can configure. But while creating the subnet, we are creating the NSG is that is not at the VM level where we are creating that. We are creating this at the subnet level we are creating. Okay, so then we can enable even say suppose for the security purpose uh, DDoS protection, and on top of that we are going to get even a Azure firewall also. Azure firewall also have been, we can enable those settings also on the VNet level. Then once we create this, like here we are going to give the like CIDR range for subnet. Okay, so now here try to understand. So here I'm going to create one subnet. So my VPC or VNet CIDR block is, what is the VNet CIDR block we are using? 10.0.0.0/16. But in this use case, we are going to give 10.0.0.0/24 I'm giving. I want one more subnet. Then 10.0.1.0/24. Why I can't use 10.0? This is fixed, because if I use /16, this is 8 bits, this is 8 bits, these all reserved. Only these two we can change. That is the reason for this I have used 0.0/24. 0.0/24 will give us 256 IPs. So now here also, this is giving 256 IPs we are getting. Okay. So that means in each subnet, how many IPs we are getting? 256. What is the formula here is? So what is the notation we have used is /16 or /24. The formula how many IPs we will get is 2 to the power of 32 in the 32 minus 16 or 24. 2 to the power of 32 minus 16 is 2 to the power of 32 minus 16 is 2 to the power of 16. That will give us 65,536 IPs. If I use /24, say 2 to the power of 32 minus 24, that will give us
2 to the power of 8.
2 to the power of 8. That's 256 IPs. Okay. If I use /20, if I use the /20,
2 to the power of 10.
no, 32 minus
20.
20.
12.
Yeah, 2 to the power of 12. That is equal to 4096 IPs. Okay, so how many IPs we got in the subnet if I use /20?
4096.
Yeah, so then if I use /24,
256.
yeah, so then here among the 256, internally 5 IPs have been reserved. So who is going to reserve is Azure is going to reserve those. 5 IPs have been reserved by the Azure, and technically how many we can use?
Technically, we can use 3 only.
No, 251 IPs.
Okay, okay.
So technically, even if it's in
Uh,
this use case /24, how many IPs we are getting?
251
No, if I use
56
/20,
/20 4096 you are getting.
yeah,
Among
4096.
that, minus 5, 4091 we can
Yeah,
use, right?
maximum that we can create is 4091, and 5 IPs have been reserved by the subnet level. Okay, so then if my subnet is 10 dot 0 dot, so this is the range, assume. So this is the range. Okay, then what are the IPs have been used by the Azure is the first IP address. What is the first IP address in this series is 10 dot 0 dot 0.
0.1.
No, 0 itself.
0 is a network address, right?
Yeah, that is reserved, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that means this IP have been used for network address. Okay, the next address is gateway address, that is 10 dot 0 dot,
0 dot slash
yeah, one is used for Azure default
gate.
gateway, which will route the traffic inside that VNet or subnet. Okay, so that means that is the default gateway that is reserved. And the third IP address is 10 dot 0 dot 0 dot 2. This is used for the internal DNS purpose. Okay, the first one is for the network address. Second IP address is the default gateway. Third is Azure DNS. Then 10.0.0.3. This IP address has been reserved by Azure for future purpose. Okay, for the future purpose, Azure have been reserved this IP address. And what is the last IP address is 10.255 is the last address in that subnet. Okay, so last address is the last IP address, and this is used for broadcasting address. Okay, what is the meaning of broadcasting is if you want to send any the complete broadcast to all the VNet resources like this, but by default Azure is not supporting like broadcasting in the Azure network, but that IP have been reserved. That IP have been reserved. Okay. Yeah. So total 5 IPs have been reserved in the subnet. If I use 10.10. Series, if I use the 10.10. Series, then 10.10.0.0, then 10.10.0.1, 0.2, 0.3, then
55.
0.255. So like this here we are going to get the IPs have been reserved. Okay. So then, so what are the minimum and maximum CIDR range supported by Azure? That means, say here in our use case, we given /16 for /16 we gave for VNet, /20 or 24 we given for the subnet. But the minimum size of the like Azure is supporting is /29. If I use /29, can you tell me how many IPs we are getting? 2 to the power of 32 minus
32 minus 29. That is 5. 2 to the power of 5. 32
no,
IP.
no 2 to the power of 32 minus 29. That is 2 cube. Means only 8 IPs we are getting. Okay, so only 8 IPs we are getting. 2 to the power of
Among that 8 IPs also.
again only 5. That is the smallest CIDR is supported in Azure.
Okay.
But technically, only we can keep three resources only in that VNet. That's not a best practice. Okay, the maximum is /8, but it's not also recommended to use /8 also. If I use the /8, almost I'm getting 16. Sorry, 16. So these many number, but it's recommended to use /16. Okay, say here we are getting 1 crore 67 lakhs 77,216 IPs, but better to give /16.
Sir, Azure providing a classful subnet or classless subnet?
No, no, these all CIDR meaning is, say, suppose if I represent uh, uh, 24 this, that meaning is it's a CIDR representation itself.
Yes, sir, but I am asking actually in the 10 series 10.0.0./8 is the default without class without classful subnet. By default, we are getting 10.0.0. The subnet mask is 255.0.0.0.
But here you no need to specify the CIDR block. In the CIDR block, you no need to specify the subnet mask.
Okay, okay, okay.
So that is the meaning of classless interdomain routing.
This is a classless only. Okay, okay.
So CIDR, say if I represent slash notation, in the notation I'm going to give 0 to 32.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so now
But
if I represent 0.0.0.0
mm,
slash 0, what is this meaning of this is?
that is a that
That
is
is
not a
equal to any IP address in the world.
okay.
Okay,
address కానీ ఏదైనా reserved ఆ?
any IP address in the world have been reserved with this. Okay, so then if I use 10.10.0.0 slash 16, meaning is my first 10 series, then next 8 bits. That means that 10 dot is fixed. That in that 0.0 you can give any of the combinations that will give you the series of uh, like
10.10
65,000.
series.
Yeah, 10.10.0.1, 0.0, 0.1, 0.2, like this. 1.0, 1.1, 1.255, then 2.0, 2. Like this here, this will give the complete combination of 65,536 IPs we are going to get. Okay, and among those, even if we have the multiple subnets also, so here if these all the classes we have in this 0.0, but you no need to specify any subnet mask, all those you no need to specify.
So it will take automatically by Azure.
Yes, no, no, that is the CIDR is the new way of representing the IPs.
Okay.
Okay, that's not only Azure. Now, in every network we are using, even in AWS, every network we are representing the IPs using the CIDR block itself. So now, like here, IPv4 and IPv6. Okay, so mostly, like from my academics, I'm reading one word. IPv4 end of life is going to declare. Okay, already we are going to be end of life for IPv4, but still we are continuing with IPv4, right? IPv4 life have been extended with the two things. One is CIDR. Okay, so that means we are representing a new way of IP address. That is the CIDR representation. The second one is NATing. The second reason why IP addresses have been working is NATing. So what is the concept of the NATing is network address translation. Like for the public, I am not getting a IPv4 address, then I may use IPv6 address, but internally that is NATing to, that is translating to.
So NAT by actually using for so routing public to private and private to public.
Yeah, but internally, like how we are surviving or how we are using IPv4, because at some point of time, like all we need to move to IPv6 itself. But still, why we are using IPv4 is two reasons. One is CIDR branch, second one is NATing. These two concepts itself have been given the life for
IPv4.
IPv4. Okay, otherwise, what is going to happen?
Go to IPv6.
Yeah, IPv6.
Sir,
Okay.
but in the Geo network, we are getting IPv6 IPs only, sir, for mobile devices
Yeah, that's
nowadays.
no problem. They will transfer or they will internally they may maintain IPv4
Okay.
because IPv4 addresses like we don't have IPv4 addresses. Public IPv4 addresses have been exhausted.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, but internally private wise they may keep IPv4. Public they may got IPv6. But this address they'll translate again back to
IPv4.
IPv4 network. Okay, so it depends upon your requirement whether to choose maybe slash 16, okay, or slash 20, 24. Mostly we are choosing. For if you want a very smaller kind of thing, then slash 29, slash 28 are the smaller. Okay, 29 will give only, the maximum is 8 only. Okay, then slash 28 will give us
16.
16. Say even that also 11 you can keep. Okay. In the CIDR, if you want to represent only one IP, assume I got 10 dot 0 dot 0.45. If we want to represent this in this address in the CIDR representation, then I need to use /32. If I use /32, what is that meaning is that is the representation of only one IP address. One IP
Address.
address. Okay, so that means 32, 2 to the power of 32 minus
32 minus 32 is 0.
2 to the power of 0. 2 to the power of 0 is
Anything power 0 is equal to 1.
yeah, 1. So that means if we want to represent only one IP, then we are going to use in the CIDR representation, you need to use /32. Okay, any IPv4 address can be represented with which CIDR representation?
I'm not getting, sir. Come again.
So if you want to represent any IPv4 address in the world,
With the CIDR.
hmm? No, what is that CIDR representation? So 0.0.
0.0.0. That is the represent slash
Yeah, this is the representation of any
slash 0.
IPv4 address in the world. Any address in the okay. So then here we are getting an NSG also. So NSG is nothing but network security group. So now one NSG is at a subnet level. Then we are creating one NSG at the VM level. Okay. So that means maybe you have an apartment at the like a main like a security would be there. At your flat level also you may configure your own security kind of things. Okay, one at the subnet level we have the NSG, one at the
Oh, on
VM
at the
level.
VM level. On it.
Yeah, VM level we have this. Okay, any doubts on this?
Sir, actually, while I learning network at that time, so 10 is a class A and 172 is a class B,
Yeah,
and
now we no need to worry about if I represent in the CIDR range, you no need to say suppose here IPv4 we have 5 classes.
yes,
Say class A, class B, class C, class D. Okay, so now 1 to 126 is
0 to
class A.
127, yes,
Yeah, 127 is a loopback address.
yes, yes,
Again, 128 to 191
191,
is class B. 192 to
192 to I think
223.
223. That is a
Yeah,
class C.
class C. Okay, so till this we can use. Okay, class
Hmm.
D is like uh, is a multicast addresses,
Yes,
and the
yes,
class C have been reserved by like IPv IANA itself.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
but these all we no need to worry about the classes now. Subnet mask, you no need to worry about those.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so then here we have one more very important terminology is there that is called as service endpoints.
Okay.
So what is the concept of the service endpoints is, so we created a VNet, okay, and subnet also. So we have a private subnet. So with the private subnet, what is going to happen is it won't get internet, or even we can't access that resources also. But what is the requirement I have is, say we have a private subnet. In the private subnet, I have one VM. This VM want to communicate like with the Azure services, Azure PaaS-based services like maybe Azure SQL, storage kind of thing, or Kubernetes. Okay, that what is that meaning of service endpoints? Okay, so then service endpoints is going to provide a private network and direct route to the VNet, okay, such as storage, SQL, Cosmos DB, or Kubernetes, like these services we are going to get. Okay, so what is the advantage is? What is the advantage? Say, I have a private subnet resources, want to access Azure PaaS-based services. For this, I don't want to give. For this, I don't want to give.
We don't want to give private IP.
Internet, I don't want to give. But
Mhm.
still, they want to communicate with
Azure.
through the Azure. Okay, so in the backend, Azure is going to provide a private connection using this from that VM. It is going to communicate with any of the Azure PaaS-based services. Those Azure PaaS-based services may be Azure storage. So that means I have some data in my file share or blob storage or maybe any table, file, queue or database I want to communicate. I don't want to give the public access for those. Okay, still they want to communicate. So for this, what is the solution we have?
NSG.
No, no. NSG will just will configure the firewall rules.
Okay.
But with the pass-based services, we want the internet connection is mandatory. But
Okay.
without requiring the connection over the privately and securely, if we want to connect to that VNet, we need to give the VNet service endpoints. Okay, so with which pass resource our subnet want to communicate, we can provide that. Okay, with Azure storage or SQL database or Vault. Okay, so with this service app services, if we want to connect, okay, so then we need to create the service endpoint. With this, what is the advantages? In a secure way over the private network itself, our VM is able to communicate with Azure PaaS-based services.
Services.
Okay, but the limit is within the region itself we are going to get. Okay, so we within the VNet it's going to communicate. Okay, so now we have even private endpoints also. We'll discuss, but as of now, we are going to create service endpoints also. We are going to create. So now here, I'll go to Azure portal. We'll create these all the resources till now. Okay, so now here we have Azure portal. We are going.
Sir, I can't able to create more VM, sir, with my subscription
Yeah, change the region.
region. Okay.
So maybe within the region, 4 CPUs we can
Yeah,
create
yeah.
that
Okay. We
maximum.
can
That is,
create another
yeah,
region.
delete the VMs also.
Okay, okay.
Because that is a free account, right? That they kept that limitation for our subscription.
Okay, okay. So another region also we can
Yeah,
create.
another reason you can try to create
Okay, okay.
and delete these and public IPs also you delete because maximum 5 public IPs we can create.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so now here we are into Azure portal. I'm going to log into Azure Vnet. So now here we have the virtual networks. So here we have the Azure virtual networks, and here when we created the VMs in the resource group, if the resource group doesn't have any VNet, automatically we got the VNets also. But we are not going to use these VNets. We can create our own
Units.
VNets, but we are creating our own VNet, and within that itself, say suppose if I go for maybe clouds of we have one VNet. If I go to this VNet, automatically I got my subnets also. So what is the address space we have used is 10.0.0 we have used, and what is the subnet we are getting is /24, and this is the default subnet, and 251 IPs will get, maybe one VM have been used that. That's the reason we got 250 IPs have been reserved. But now we are creating our own virtual networks. We are going to create this. So now here, what are the things we need to give is, we need to give the basic name, then security, IP address CIDR range. Okay, so now we have decided, okay, so 10 dot series we are going to use. So free tile, this is our subscription details. Then resource group, which resource you want, you can choose. I'm using CloudSoft itself. Okay, so then I'm going to create one virtual network name. I'll give JPMC network. Okay, so assuming JPMC is my project, for that I'm going to create one VNet. Otherwise, I have given JPMC VNet. Okay, so then if I don't give any security here, we can enable the encryptions also. Better to encrypt, and even we can provide DDoS protection, all this. And if I don't give anything, by default I'm getting the range is 10.0, but I don't want these IP address. Okay, I'm adding IPv4. Okay, so by default it is adding
16.
yeah, 16 itself is added. Okay, so then so we can add the subnet also. So here, instead of adding a subnet, I'm using /24 I'm going to use. Okay, so then here by default we are getting around 256 IPs we are getting. Okay, if you want to add more, we can add it also. Okay, so then here 10 dot 0 dot 0 dot 0 to 10 dot 0 dot 0 /255 we are going to get it. Okay, so now here we didn't added anything, I've deleted. Okay, so then instead of 10.10.0, I'm using 10.20 I have decided to use. So 10.20 have decided to use. Okay, then I'm adding a subnet also. Then that is the default subnet. And I'm going to give 10.20.0.0 /24 I have used here for my subnet. Okay, 10.20.0.0/16 is
16 is for
for
net.
VNet. Okay,
Okay.
/24 for my subnet. Okay, if you want optionally, we can use IPv6 also. Okay, then you can make it as the private subnet also. Then in the security wise, you can attach a NAT gateway. What is the purpose of NAT gateway also we'll discuss. Then we need to attach a network security group. As of now, we are not adding any network security group, and route table and service endpoints. If that is a private subnet, okay, so with which service we want to access. I want to communicate with Cosmos DB or Azure Active Directory or cognitive services or container registry, event hub. Okay, so with all these are the pass-based services. If we want to give the access, then I'm going to give these rules. I'm going to give these connections I can establish. Okay, so then even we can configure the network policies also. We'll discuss this network policies also for the private endpoints. So now here we have two things. As of now, we are discussing about the service endpoints, but we can discuss about the private endpoints also. Then like this, I'm going to add this subnet also. Like this, you can create multiple subnets also. Then we're going for review and create those. Okay, so now here I'm going to create my VNet. Okay, so now here that VNet and subnet endpoints, all these have been created. Okay, so now here you can attach the subnets to the NSGs, all these also, and we can say don't enable in this account because if I enable, Azure is charging lot of money for this. But for the production servers,
We need to enable. Huh?
yeah, in the production we need to enable this. But if we enable this, lot of money, like almost 2,000, 3,000, they're charging for per day itself for this. Okay, but here these all also in the production networks we're going to enable, and we can add a new firewall. Say NSG is different. Again we are getting one more firewall also, Azure firewall. Okay, so then say here we discuss about the service endpoints, right? So what is the purpose of the service endpoint is like I have one private subnet without using the public internet. Those resources want to access privately over the pass-based services. We are going to use the private endpoint. Even we have the private endpoints also we'll discuss. Then peering. What is the concept of the peering is I have two private subnets. Okay, so we have two regions maybe two different VNets we have. By default, the communication is not going to come between the VNets. Okay, so for that explicitly we need to enable the VNets we need to expose. Okay, so what is the concept of peering? So what is the concept of the peering is, so assume I have two different regions. What I want is, I want the replication. Okay, so what is the what we have done in one region, I want to replicate to another region. But by default, we don't get the connection between them. By default, we don't get
Connection.
any connection. But for that, what we need to do is we need to establish VNet
Peering.
peering. Okay, so even within the region, it's possible. Otherwise, for the multiple regions also. Okay, so for multiple regions also, like we can configure the peering connections can be established. Okay, so say here how to establish that VNet peering also we'll discuss. Okay, so here today, like we need to understand VNet and those CIDR ranges are address spaces. Then subnet, logically we are dividing those VNets into subnets we are dividing. Okay, after this, so we need to understand the NSGs. Now we have two types of in AWS, what they have kept is at the subnet level, they're calling as NACL, NACL, Network Access Control List. At the VM level or instance level, AWS using security group. But here in the Azure, we are using the same term called as NSG itself. Now we can configure the NSG at we
VNet
can
level.
configure either VNet level we can configure or
Azure firewall level also configure.
yeah, at the subnet level also we can configure or at the resource level also we can configure. Either at the resource level also we can configure. So that is the advantage of
NSG.
NSGs. Okay, so these all having the inbound and outbound rules. Okay, then the smallest range of CIDR is slash
Slash.
29. The biggest range of CIDR is slash 18. But you can tell you are using slash 16 for your range of IPs and slash 24 for or maybe slash 20 for your subnets. Okay, so your subnets we are going to use. Okay, then what is the meaning of service endpoints?
Service endpoints providing a secure connections to the private
Yeah, over
resource
the public IP or private?
through private IP.
So through the private link itself, it's not a private IP. It's a
Okay.
private link has been established in the Azure network itself. Okay, and using that the communication is going to happen. Instead of giving the public IPs to those pass-based services, over the privately itself is going to communicate. Okay. Then here, what is the concept of this one? Peering,
Peering in the multiple regions, what are
multiple
the
regions or multiple VNets we have, by default, the communication is not going to happen.
by using peering, we can establish a communication between the different regions.
Yeah. So now we'll discuss one more use case. I have a private network. Okay. And for the private network, what is going to happen is our private subnet we have. Okay. In the private subnet, okay, say we have some databases or we have some VMs. They want access internet. Okay, so why they want to access the internet is, my use case is they want some patching kind of things. Okay, so they want to access some patching or they want to access some APIs. So maybe, say suppose you want to do any phone pay or any UPIs, or if you want to do, those APIs should be accessible for you. Okay, so that means those VMs want to communicate with some internet, but I don't want to make it public. Then the solution we have is NAT gateway. So what NAT gateway will do is, it is going to provide the outbound internet, not public access. Can you tell me what NAT gateway is doing? What NAT gateway is doing?
Provide an internet for the
It's
private
providing the internet
network resource.
for the private subnets. For the private
Okay.
subnets. Okay, so so suppose assume I'll tell one use case. This Saturday, we want to perform some maintenance kind of activity. Some maintenance kind of activity we want to perform, maybe patching kind of things. Okay, it want to download some softwares or patches and those need to be installed. Okay, so that means, so here we can attach a NAT gateway to the subnet. If I attach NAT gateway, what happens? It's a private subnet, but it is going to get inbound internet or outbound internet.
Outbound internet only.
Outbound. If I give the internet access over the inbound also, then publicly so those database servers or those private subnets, I don't want to access those. But what I want to provide is,
You need to provide internet for that VM.
yeah, VM. Okay, so then another thing is, say we have one more important concept is there called as route table. Okay, so what is the concept of the route table? Or we can create user defined routes we can create. Route tables are nothing but how the routing is going to happen. We are going to get, if I create a subnet, internally we are getting one a router kind of connection also we are getting, and we can define our own routing rules in the route table. Okay, so we can create our own routing rules also will create, okay, to how the traffic is routed inside the VNet or between the VNets. All these rules can be enforced by route table. Okay, so NAT gateway is used to provide internet to the private subnet missions, and how the routing is going to happen, our own rules we can define. In the route table we can define. In the route table we are going to provide. Okay, so these all, like here, if you go to this say peerings. Okay, so then we have the service endpoints, private endpoints. Okay, so we are getting internally for the IPs also, it's provided by Azure itself is providing DNS. The 10 dot in that series 10.0.0.2, that is the for the DNS server. Okay, so these all, like here, what is the purpose of Bastion host is like mm, we have a private subnet mission. We want to access to that private subnet mission over the jump server. Like this Bastion host will act as the jump server. Okay, so that means we want to take an RTP or SSH to the private subnet missions. Then technically, first what we are creating is we are creating a Bastion host. Okay, and automatically we can connect it to those private subnet missions to that VMs. We don't have a public IP. Still, I want to connect to that. Okay, so that's possible through Bastion host. Okay, so it means internally a dedicated subnet is getting created with Azure Bastion subnet, and with that we are going to get the IPs, and with this we are going to connect. Bastion host, can you tell me it resides in public subnet or private subnet?
Yeah.
Bastion host technically should be in public subnet or private subnet.
Through public only.
Yeah, it's a jump server kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay, so Bastion host is managed by Azure itself. You no need to create any jump server kind of thing. Okay, and we no need of technically the IP address also. It's providing a secure way of connecting to private subnet VMs. To the private subnet VMs, we can create by using Bastion host. Okay, so using those Bastion host also we are going to connect. We'll discuss how to connect to the private subnets by using the Bastion host also. Okay, so and all these we can monitor and logging also we can enable. Okay, so all these logs also, like who are trying to access our subnets, all these also we can access through the logging also we will configure to the subnets. Okay, then here we have service endpoints and private endpoints also. Okay, so a private endpoint uses like it's a very dedicated private link is going to be provided. Okay, it's a private link is getting created, and with that we are going to integrate, and no public internet can be exposed. Okay, so that's compared to service endpoints, enhanced security, and very simple networking can be provided with the private endpoint. Okay, we can create the private endpoint also. So using that we can connect. Okay, so compared to service endpoint or private endpoint, Azure is recommending for the security wise, private endpoints are recommended to create. So now here we have two types of endpoints we have. One is public subnet, and we have private like a private endpoint and service endpoint. Direct connectivity to those services have been provided over the Azure backbone network, but with the private endpoint, what's happening is a private link is getting created. Okay, so it's more secure compared to the service
Service
endpoint.
endpoints.
Okay, service endpoint. Okay, so that's we can create both either service endpoint or private endpoint. We are going to create. Okay, and we have network interface level also. We'll discuss these all in the tomorrow session. We'll discuss today. Spend more time on, and here if I go for the VM. Okay, if I go for the VM. So these all delete those. So while creating the VNet, so if you come to the networking part, okay, so it depends upon your resource group. So I chosen the resource group, right? Then here, which VNet we want, we can choose. Say JPMC, we got this JPMC VNet.
Yes, sir. Got it. 10.20.
Okay, say 10.20 we given, and if you give the public IP here, that's going to become a public subnet, and you can attach even which subnet, because we have given only one subnet there. Depends upon our requirement. We need to choose which subnet also. Which
Sir,
subnet?
we don't give that public IP, right?
No. If here for the VM instance level, we are giving the public IP.
Okay. So suppose, sir, we are working somewhere, so that organization IP we need to give here.
No.
Mm.
Azure will provide a public IP.
Okay.
In that Azure region, what are the available IPs we have, we are going to get that IP we are giving.
Okay.
Okay. So yesterday also I shared 2 videos. Go through those virtual network videos. We require good expertise, and even for AVD also we need to design all these networks, subnets, all these. We require good knowledge.
Yesterday.
Peering.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday morning I shared some videos.
Okay.
Okay, so go through those videos, and tomorrow I'll finish all these lab. Will finish in the tomorrow session. Meanwhile, go through all these.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
It will confuse it,
Just
sir,
quick
regarding the
question.
NAT and subnet.
One second.